Hey everybody, welcome back to another Q&A. It is Sunday, July 20th, 2025. We have about a half dozen questions or so today, so we're going to jump in here. First question for today is how to increase glycogen uptake in muscles to improve thickness, I guess is what they're asking. Advanced tricks. There's not a lot of advanced tricks to increase glycogen uptake because the principle of that is going to be that there is a need for glycogen, that there's not enough, that there's space for it. It's not completely, saturated, if you will. And the second portion of that is going to be that your body is sensitive in a way that it has a need to replenish that glycogen, that it has a need or a want to store glucose in the muscle as glycogen. You have to meet those requirements first. So that's why if you exercise or you weight train and you deplete some glycogen, that you might be a bit more sensitive to replenish glycogen. We need it. And GLUT4 transport might increase. Insulin sensitivity might increase slightly. We see the same thing with insulin sensitivity when we are leaner, when we are, dieting, or when we're in a deficit. So outside of using maybe higher levels of androgens, anabolics, which are going to spare glycogen, they're going to help spare it. There's not a lot that you can do to necessarily artificially increase glycogen over what you would normally be able to store, outside of instances where we see this kind of super compensation effect of glycogen after being very lean for a long period of time, or very depleted for a long period of time. But in normal day-to-day scenarios, if you're going through like a calorie surplus, off-season type phase, it's really going to boil down to the things that I mentioned prior. You can use nutrient timing if you want. It's probably not going to make that much of a difference in the grand scheme as far as storing more glycogen, but don't get too insulin resistant, and you're going to be most of the way there. Do you have any future competition plans? Not at the moment, sort of tentatively. So I will be 35 in a couple months, which makes me eligible for Masters bodybuilding, believe it or not. So that might be a thing, potentially Masters Nationals, North American, something like that. That's something we tossed around, and I, tossed around that idea. It's not definitive, but really the only tentative plan that I have at this point, just continuing to improve. But I'll be back at some point for sure. Oh boy, what's the most difficult thing about being a coach? Oh goodness. I'm sure my answer to this question might be different than other people answering this question. Some might say that their difficulties, getting clients, or their difficulty is staying organized, or their difficulties like something business or system related. I don't think that that's necessarily my difficulty, not at this point in my career, I guess you could say. I've been coaching for probably about 16 years. Once at the end of this year, my 16th year. It's all that I've ever done, pretty well established. So those things aren't necessarily the main difficulty. I think the difficulty is still trying to fine tune client communications, and which I feel that I do well at drawing boundaries, effectively communicating things in a evolving landscape. Like the scope of coaching is a lot different than it was 10 years ago. There's a lot more psyche that's involved. There's not necessarily more psyche that's involved. It's just more talked about. It's almost expected to some extent that a coach is going to address those things, right? So I think that the most difficult part is that coaching in and of itself, especially when you have a full client load and you're busy, is that it's just very, very mentally and emotionally demanding. Anyone that's pretty deep into this, that's done it for a long time, would tell you that it can be pretty soul crushing at times, because you're dealing with body image, you're dealing with emotions, you're dealing with all of these things that you might deal with in any type of consulting job, potentially. Even if you were an accountant or financial advisor, or really any kind of consultant job, right? But you're adding layers into this with body image and a lot of type A personalities and neuroticism and all these things. And so it can be very, very soul crushing. It can just be trying to reason with people on a regular basis. It can really take it out of you. And there's a lot of people that don't last in the coaching space. They just can't make it, man. It just crushes them mentally. And I can understand why. That's kind of vague. It's not really like one tangible thing, but the listeners that know what I'm saying will probably relate. Next question. Could you run endoclomiphene while on TRT for fertility? You could. Endoclomiphene or clomid would potentially increase sperm production via a couple different mechanisms. I think that when you're looking at fertility, specifically male fertility, is male asking the question, is it something that you need to do constantly, or is it something that you can do like a when you need to? You could do it constantly, but you see in most fertility situations, the person will be prescribed or suggested to do these, endoclomiphene or tamoxifen with HCG, FSH. There are different combinations of things you can do. And I'm not going to tell you which is better or worse, but you don't necessarily have to do them on a constant basis. I mean, you can do them when you're trying to conceive. I don't know that you need to do it all the time. Most people are probably going to say no. I kind of fall in that camp. Of course, I'm not a fertility doctor. I do deal with these situations a lot, but I mean, that's just my viewpoint on it, is use it when you need to use it. If there's a 3 to 6 month span that you're trying to conceive or something, then you can use it. I don't really see a whole lot of point in using these things on a constant basis. And it's just another drug that you're having to take. So take that for what it's worth. I've been working with a coach for a long time now, and she's been great. However, I really struggle consistently following the plan. Any advice? I would be curious to know if this is a new problem or an old problem. Is this something that's happened or that's been going on for a long period of time, or something that's relatively new in the last, month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever period of time? That might tell us something, because we may be able to see what the common denominator is there. Was there a trigger? Was there a catalyst to this issue? Right? It's like, well, after my competition, I had a hard time with following my plan, and I've not been able to get back on my plan. Something like that. Or after this happened in my life, my job changed, my career changed. I was having a difficult time planning or prioritizing my time, or whatever number of things could come up. I think that it really depends on what the catalyst is for that process. That would be probably where you're going to find your answer to that question. Now, if it's been a continuous thing, then always thinking about, is the plan set up in a way that's manageable for you as a person? Are we managing our expectations in terms of, if we're a coach, are we managing our expectations in terms of what we're asking out of the client? Is it scaled in a way that's makes sense for their goal? What is their goal? Is their goal to lose 10 pounds? Is their goal to try to become a pro bodybuilder? There's different levels of effort and different levels of compromise, I guess, or things that you need to be doing as far as rigidity potentially that are required to reach these different goals, and also sustainability, because something like a contest prep is not sustainable. It's not meant to be. It is short term. Something like losing 10 pounds or 20 pounds for improved overall health and so on and so forth, that is meant to be sustainable. We should be probably achieving it in a way that we can replicate consistently. So maybe making sure that the plan is even realistic for the client at that point in time. And if you're really struggling, if you're a client, you're struggling, hopefully you're communicating that. I think that a lot of people get afraid to communicate it. They feel that they're failing. They feel that they're inadequate. They feel that maybe that they even want control themselves. Like they want some type of control. And if they relinquish that control, well, then something bad will happen. But in reality, something bad is already happening, I guess, in a sense. You're not really following the plan, and it's not as effective as it could be. So you definitely need to communicate those things. I can't say how many times that people do that stuff and they don't want to tell their coach because they just are afraid or ashamed, or that they're going to disappoint them. And there might be some coaches that are like that, but honestly, the good ones are going to be not upset. They're going to want to figure out how to correct the problem and why it's there. So I know those are kind of generalized things to think about, but the answer is going to lie in the catalyst to the problem, right? Like, why are we not following the plan? Can we figure that out first? All right. Next question looks like it might be a kind of a multi-part question, so stick with me on this one. It's 3 different submissions, and I think it's all part of the same question, but it's kind of hard to tell what order it's in. So I'm going to read this, and hopefully it's correct. Hormones at menopausal levels, and I'm 26. Do BHRT, so hormone replacement, or try to fix naturally? Question. Downregulated hormones and no cycle due to dieting phase over exercise, drop cardio ASAP? Question. And bring food up, or would you reverse the client slowly out of this phase on NP and T3? Not sure what NP is. NP thyroid? I'm not sure. I know what T3 is. I'm not really sure if this is the same person or if this is separate questions. It's very difficult to tell based on the way that it's written. If your hormones are at menopause, we'll start at the beginning. If your hormones are at menopausal age and you're 26, try to fix them naturally. You can definitely go on HRT. It's not going to be that difficult to get in today's day and age, and it will correct your hormones. You can find the dosages that will bring your hormones to the levels that they need to be. Problem with this or doing this immediately is that there are 99.9% of the time, it's not your hormones, your progesterone, your estradiol, your testosterone, your DHEA, like whatever, like it's not all going to be downregulated in isolation. There will be other problems. So you end up taking HRT and you don't correct anything else. And so, yeah, you notice some benefit from the HRT, which is great. And maybe that is the correct answer for some individuals that have done all the other things right. But the problem is that a lot of people take HRT and expect all their problems to go away, but they haven't fixed their habits that got them there in the first place. They continue to do the same things. And inevitably, a lot of these other things get worse over time. Their hormones look good. Everything else looks like shit. So I just wouldn't. I just think that there's, in most cases, people haven't really corrected the root of the issue. And if you do, and your hormones are still lousy, then maybe that is the correct answer. So just consider that. As far as the second part, and this may be a separate question, is about downregulated hormones and no cycle due to dieting phase or and over exercising. Do we drop cardio and bring food up? I'm assuming that's kind of a second question. And I mean, the general answer to that would be yes. When you're looking at coming out of a deficit, you also want to think about fatigue reduction or reducing accumulated fatigue. So I would say that yes, you want to increase food probably, but also by decreasing cardio or reducing the intensity of exercise, you're getting kind of a two-pronged benefit because you are changing net calorie balance, right? Your expenditures goes down, which means now you are not in a deficit, most likely, and accumulated fatigue goes down. So you're getting two benefits. It's kind of giving you a similar benefit as increasing your calories, but you're also reducing fatigue and stress on your nervous system and on your adrenals. So I would argue that you're probably going to get more bang for your buck there, but you need to look at which of those things needs the most attention. I mean, if they're not doing much cardio and they're eating very little, then focus on food first. If they're doing a lot of expenditure, high amounts of training, so on and so forth, you probably ought to focus there first, and or some combination of both of those things, right? So I think consider that if you're, deciding like which of these levers am I going to pull or how much of each of them do I need to pull on initially. Without any more context, it would be difficult to say which of those things to prioritize and how quickly or anything like that. But the general answer would be yes. But that's going to be pretty vague and largely depend on the person. So I think that is it today. I believe that we have covered everything. So I appreciate the questions from everyone, and we will talk to you all next time.